So this video today will be on extending the hand, extended position. Oftentimes the first time we learn this would be something like a D major scale in the lower register. 1, 2, 4, whole step, D, E, F sharp. So the big idea here, the number one way that people are making it difficult on themselves is going from a regular position to the extended position where we open this whole step up between 1 and 2. The thumb doesn't come with you. That's probably the number one issue. So simply put, let me demonstrate this. If I'm playing on the D string here, E, F sharp, and G, some of the first notes we probably have learned on the instrument. Whole step between E and F sharp, 1 and 3. Let's say we have a G sharp rather than a G natural. That would require the 1, 2, 4, E, F sharp, G sharp extended. So rather than play the F sharp at 3, we're going to reach, play it with 2, and then 4 will naturally fall over G sharp. So if I was just in this closed position, if we're starting with E going to F sharp and G sharp, if that's the order of the notes, in order to reach, if I don't move my thumb at all, in order to reach the F sharp, it might occur to me, whereas in this normal hand position, 3 drops right down on F sharp very comfortably. If that seems like this opening of the 2 fingers is a bit of a stretch, I might re-angle my hand to give myself a better reach from 1 to 2. What that will do is move my 4th finger even further away from the target of G sharp in doing so, right? Here was my 4th finger. I could really have reached it with 1, 3, 4, although we never use that fingering, a common mistake all teachers see, I'm sure. Actually, sometimes I feel like that could be used more often, but in any case, it's never used, so don't do it. In reaching for this 2nd finger, if we do it improperly, we've actually moved off the target even more. My pinky is now moved over there. And when I go for the G sharp, it feels like it's 5 miles away. It feels like it's pulling my hand apart. Well, that's probably because of the thumb position having stayed. If I'm gripping with my thumb, if it's behind my 2nd finger, let's say, and I'm squeezing with my thumb to get this string down, that's the mode that I'm using to get the string down, is gripping with the thumb. I'm not going to be moving my thumb, hardly at all probably, because I'm just sort of hanging on in order to play notes. Well, if that option is not available to me to move the thumb along while keeping the 1st finger where it is, well, the only way to get to that F sharp is to turn out the hand. Again, taking the rest of my hand, my pinky in particular, further away from the string. So rather than that, I want the thumb to follow my 2nd finger up a half step or so. And then just that alone will make this a lot easier. So for those of you, you might not even realize it, that are squeezing with the thumb all the time to get the string down. You might want to practice playing even in a closed position with the thumb just hanging off the back of the instrument, right? You should be able to play things in position without the thumb. You don't really placeholder. If you're going back and forth between 1 and an open string, it feels kind of weird not to have the thumb there, right? So it can be done. That's probably the most awkward element of playing without the thumb, is going to open strings, because you totally lose all contact. But the finger 1 can be used as like a anchor itself, and we'll get more into that. So learning to play a bit hanging on the first finger, just sort of on the tip of the finger, but just hanging on it, and that's kind of your reference point, your anchor. So I'm sort of just pivoting around my first finger. I'm letting out the slack in my first finger. And that gets us to our next sort of drill, where we get used to just hanging on the first finger. I'm not touching with the thumb right now. I'm just letting the thumb off the back, just, about a centimeter off the back of the neck. Keeping the E in the same place, I'm going to go from this very proper and curved first finger position, which is good for closed position. It's what we want, right? This sort of squared arm on the tips of the fingers, a straight wrist, right? I need to learn how to actually straighten the finger out a little bit more. Now, we don't need to go fully straight finger just to get this major third. But for larger reaches, we will want to use the entire stretch, or I shouldn't call it a stretch, rather, just the range of the hand. So, again, here's the exercise. You find your first finger E. Practice hanging on the first finger. Now practice straightening the finger, coming around, and getting the max length out of that first finger. You will be on a different surface of the finger than you're normally used to, right? So you ought to be, in most closed positions, playing on sort of the side of the first finger here. I'm not sure if there it is. See that line going through my finger on the side of the finger, the thumb side, and the string kind of goes down sideways along my finger there. When I flip my hand over all the way to get onto this surface of the finger, which normally we don't play on, here's where the string is hitting the finger in this case. Right down diagonally through the pad, actually, there, versus along this side. So try to keep the pitch the same. As we sort of rotate around our first finger. Again, the thumb isn't part of this, it's just hanging out. Of course, as we do this, the pitch will want to get dragged sharp if we're not careful. Kind of have to counteract that by offsetting. It almost feels like you're pushing the finger back just to keep it in the same place. Valuable skill to learn, and just to show you what the full distance of your hand actually can reach, just hold your hand up, just comfortably open the hand. This is the distance you can stretch if you set it up correctly, right there. I'm not purposely holding the hand out as far as it can go. I'm just opening my hand. Look how far that is. When we apply that to the cello fingerboard on the same string, that's a huge distance. So that's a D. F sharp, no problem. G. G sharp, that's already a tritone, a whole step bigger than. Can almost reach a perfect fifth if I'm willing to get my hand in a position where I can use the full stretch of the hand. Again, this is not a normal playing cello position that your hand will find itself in here. How do we get into that position? You know, in something simple like this, we can kind of just pivot around the first finger on that very note. In more advanced stuff, this can be used in higher positions, for instance. Here's an example of second movement Dvorak concerto. We have a fourth coming up next here. It's G to C. I've actually fully released the thumb. Come all the way around. All the work was done in the shift leading up to getting here. Getting here is the hard part. I'm used to making this shift. Staying consistent in the same hand position that I'm used to here, right? This sort of inside leaning back deal. Well, that's not going to cut it for this stretch. If I want to use all the slack in my first finger, I'll have to get into this position if that's what I'm going for. Well, it'll have to happen in the shift. So much like I learn how to find this E at a completely different angle, this is a very different shift to practice. And again, here I find myself on a surface of the finger. This is my the surface of the finger that's almost towards the second finger rather than the surface that's towards the thumb, right? So at first that was a very difficult shift for me to learn, although it was only a half step. Of course I kept missing it sharp, right? F sharp to G. Way over shift. It almost feels like I'm pushing my first finger back even though I'm going up from E here to G. It's like a shift that feels like I'm pushing back and hanging on as it drags up, and it sort of opens the hand up for me. Let's see. So yeah, that's a little bit more of an advanced type stretch. Here it is through, let's say, in C major on the A string. I'll start in third position, fourth. Here comes fifth and sixth position. These stretches aren't so big that I have to do this. This is F, G, and A. And then here comes G, A, and B, for instance. These are the first positions that we typically will use 1, 2, 3. This is fifth and sixth position for whole step, and it feels like a bit of a stretch. If I'm moving quickly, I don't need a lot of tone. Maybe I'll keep form here. If I have to shift quickly, it's difficult to catch a bunch of these shifts in this strange position, the one that we saw here. So it gets a little clumsy out here to move fast. If I need tone, and I don't want to have this awkward feeling of crunching my first finger up like we must do oftentimes to stay inside the string here, maybe I'll come outside if I'm not worried about velocity, yeah? There's an interesting trade-off we're making here with the vibrato. We're not on top of the notes anymore, but we can keep comfortably a few fingers down at once, whereas having fingers down and doing vibrato in this instance gets tight pretty quick. I feel as though I need to pick up my first finger at the very least. In this case, somehow, even if I collapse my fingers, we see Yo-Yo Ma doing this pretty often, right? It's typical students looking at Yo-Yo Ma recording going, oh, look, he flat fingers, this and that. Well, I mean, he's obviously learned how to play like this if he chooses to. He does this for probably like sound, more tone, more vibrato. There's something solid about getting all those fingers down nice and comfortable on top of the string. Now again, we'll have to balance that out with like, if you're trying to move fast, it might not be worth getting the strings down so securely and kicking outside like this. What's another example here? Reaching a fourth on the same string can often be a big advantage if we're able to do that, right? If we let go of the thumb and we're willing to change the angle of the hand, right? Another thing about this reaching in position here, you'll notice your wrist will come up. Your wrist will come up and your elbow will actually drop around or down. It's a little counterintuitive. Oftentimes we think, oh, I need to get my arm up so I can stretch. That's not going to help if your wrist is below your elbow here and you're trying to reach forward. You actually want your elbow below the wrist above the elbow. You can kind of come around like this, right? Because if the instrument were over here, it would be fine to keep the hand straight. See how this reach is available like that? Because the instrument's over here, I can't, my head is stopping me from going over here, so to speak, right? If we're playing a piano, we're behind the thing and then our hands reach out like this. If we need to stretch, we just open the hand. What we're doing basically to get a big stretch, particularly like in first position or something, right? Like a fourth, we're creating this angle of approach, like a keyboard, by sort of dropping the arm and raising the wrist a little bit. Again, you'll have to get comfortable sort of just pushing the string down like that. You can learn how to relax like this. Right, I'm not gripping with the thumb at all in this instance. Pretty comfortable for me to reach that fourth. So if you can find yourself, if you can prepare it so you wind up in this position, there can be some big advantages reaching large distances, and you don't have to stay like this once the reach is made, right? I just avoided the sound of a shift there and a slur, right? If that's what you're going for, there's really no substitute for holding both notes down at once, right? Okay, good luck with it.